And the doors are open.
We need a sound effect to open the doors.
I know. I was thinking we need sound effects. We need a theme, theme music and all kind of good stuff.
Exit, outro music, intro music.
Yeah.
Dancers.
We'll get there.
We need dancers.
Music.
We'll get there.
Guys,
Here they
it's so sad that Sunjay couldn't be with us, but we got this terrorist anyway.
we got a Sunjay lookalike, yeah.
Well, I don't even know if it looks alike. So.
Yeah.
But as Michael pointed out, apparently your facial hair has disappeared and it's ended up on my face, but dyed black. So.
Well, Michael also pointed out before we got started that you look like you're being held hostage with that bare wall behind you.
I'm in the middle of a move, so eventually I will get stuff back on the walls. But
If you could hold up a newspaper, just so we know what date it is. Hold up a newspaper.
Exactly.
Yeah. Would you do that? Let us know. Today is August 26, 2020.
Good.
Think twice if we need to call somebody.
Yeah. So we have about 46 in the room at the moment. We'll get started in a couple minutes because the people are still walking in. People are finding finding a seat, finding friends they want to sit with, and
Getting
so
popcorn.
forth. Yeah.
I have a question for you, Mike.
How people are doing? How are people doing? How are you people doing?
Yeah. Talk to us in the chat. As you're coming in, talk to us in the chat. We love to read what you have to say.
Is there anyone who's joined us who has been, this is number 6 for us. Has anybody been with us all 6 shows?
I have.
Enter that in the chat.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, good.
Yeah. Okay. We do have somebody in the who
April
just put something in the chat.
April wins. She wins a prize. I don't know what, but we'll figure that out.
Oh, look at that. They're including recording.
Been here for
Michelle's using a loophole after yes on the recording. Good to see you, Michelle. Natasha, good to see you.
Yeah, Brian's been with us for 5 of 6.
But April didn't mention is she lost 6 bets, which is why she had to do it 6 times.
Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and get started? Hello, everyone. Glad to see you here. It is every other Wednesday, and that means it's time for every other Wednesday. And so let me just introduce my friends and co-panelists. Today we have Mike Kerr joining us from lovely Canmore, Alberta in the Canadian Rockies. Mike is, of course, the author of The Humor Advantage, Why Some Businesses Are Laughing All the Way to the Bank. And then right above him on my screen, I don't know where he is on your screen, we have someone who's standing in for Sunjay Nath. Sunjay is there. Sunjay is going to talk to us a little bit about why his appearance is a little perhaps different today. And Sunjay is joining us, of course, from Toronto in Canada. Sunjay, the author of the 10-20-10 Principle. And then on the other side of the screen, Jeff Tobe, author of Coloring Outside the Lines, joining us from, of course, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is a city that I think doesn't get enough credit. It's a great place. It's even greater now that Jeff has been there. For how long have you been there, Jeff?
I've been here 28 years, but can I also mention that I think higher than Pittsburgh rates Okotoks, Alberta?
Okotoks.
Okay, because we got Barry Ebert. It's his first session, and he's from Okotoks. So
all right,
much higher than Pittsburgh.
Okotoks is famous. They have 2 big erratics there, the big, huge boulders that were carried out by glaciers from the Rocky Mountains.
Michael, April's pointing out you misspelled your name on your Zoom.
Were you there when that happened, Mike?
I was.
Yeah, okay.
Cool. I also need to mention somebody pointed out that your name is spelled wrong, Michael, on your screen.
Is it really? It is not. Oh, it is.
You're all professionals. Don't worry.
I didn't put on my old man reading glasses. Let me change that right now. Just for all.
Okay,
right,
I'm your cat herder for this week, and so it's my job to move us ahead. And my name's Richard Hadden, co-author of Contented Cows Still Give Better Milk and other kinds of things like that. And I'm joining you from Jacksonville, Florida. And it's interesting that right now, it would have been that there would have been a very large political convention going on about 10 minutes from my house, but it is being done virtually this week, just like we are. So if they can do it virtually, we can do it virtually. I think they're probably, in retrospect, going to be happy they didn't have the convention here this week because the feels like temperature is well above 100 Fahrenheit pretty much all day, every day this week. So, but we're here to talk about culture, all things culture, and specifically this week, our topic is company culture, customer culture, ... What's the diff? So, we're going to just ask the question. I want to ask my colleagues and friends on the screen to just answer that question. What is the difference? Is there a difference? What is the difference? Or what's the connection, the correlation between a company's overall culture and what we might call their customer culture? So I'm going to start with Sunjay. And Sunjay, I think you also have an appearance explanation to give all of us today.
Okay, so yes, I did miss a spot shaving. My 8-year-old son said to me, he said, "Dad, I need you to grow a beard." At which point I asked him why. And he said, "So you can no longer zerbert me." And if you're not familiar with the term zerbert, it's when you put your lips against their belly and go and make that funny sound and they giggle. And when you have a beard, you can't do it because of air and stuff. So hence the reason. Anyways, and to answer the question, it's a chicken and egg problem. Having good organizational culture can lead to good customer culture, and having good customer culture can lead to good organizational culture. And it's a multi-pronged approach. You need to be doing things in both to kind of lead to that chain reaction.
Okay, Jeff, what do you think?
I have to go to customer experience. Sorry,
Yeah.
that's what I know. So,
That's your thing.
And so I really believe customer experience is a big part of the company culture. But I think by focusing on customer experience, on the other side, focusing on employee engagement, Richard, I think that there's a correlation. I'll share a study that I use in all of my presentations. It's done by a firm out of the UK, worldwide study on organizations. What they found was that if over 50% of your employees are engaged, it's likely that you'll retain 80% of your customers. And so I think that's a huge thing right there. What's the difference between the two? I think they're so interwound, it's hard to make a distinction.
Okay, cool. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And Jeff brings up a good point with that study. I mean, it's an old cliche saying, but it's a cliche because it's true. Happy employees.
A lot of cliches are, yeah.
Happy employees lead to happy customers. To me, they're one and the same.
Could you perhaps also say, Mike, that contented cows give better milk? Is that an apt metaphor, perhaps?
Only if they color outside the lines.
Yeah, okay, all right.
I wouldn't use either of those cliche trite hack sayings myself. That's just me. No, yes, Richard, that's very true. But to answer your question, if I may,
yes.
I don't think there is a separation. I talk about creating a service-first culture. I think customer service has to start on the inside. It is one and the same. You build a rocking great culture that is based on delivering great service to your teammates, to your boss, to your employees, and that oozes outwards into everything you do. I do find it interesting that there are examples of companies out there where there's a disconnect between those two things. I think we can probably think of companies where they have phenomenal customer service, so their outward face is great, but on the inside, on the back end, they have a horrible culture and they treat their employees like crap.
Well, wait a minute, I don't doubt that, but how can you sustain that if that's the case?
Well, exactly. It's bizarre to me. And then you've got sometimes you have the reverse of that. But so I think that it all blends together. In fact, when we talk about this idea of customer service, I think we have to remind ourselves that our most important customers are on the inside. They're sitting right there at the table across from us.
So Mark
Turley makes a great point. He says, how your employees feel today is how your customers will feel tomorrow. So.
And there's a lag, right? What the environment you're fostering within your team is going to ooze that. So it comes down to that old question: do you dance because you're happy, or are you happy and so you dance? Yeah. And the reality is both, right? So there's times where you're happy and you dance, other times where you dance and you become happy. So it's the same thing with the customers and the employees. The other thing though too is because it's so related, it becomes a perception issue. There are people who consider their customers to be employees. So it's really perception based, but it is absolutely intertwined, and you really, on a sustainable basis, you cannot have one being dysfunctional and the other being healthy.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
it's going to ooze. So they're either going to both become dysfunctional or they're going to both become healthy.
Yeah, and you know, but it's funny. Both you, Sunjay and Mike, used the word ooze, and that's exactly the word I was thinking. You know, your culture just kind of defines you. It just kind of oozes out of every pore, whether it's the way you treat your employees, the way you treat your customers, the way you look on the outside. So I've been doing quite a bit of reading this week, and came across some really interesting articles, and one of them, this was from Inc. magazine. I'm sorry, from Entrepreneur magazine, and the title of the article just is, "Does your company culture lead to happy customers?" And it's a great article. I don't want to in any way downplay the article. It's a great article. Everything I read is just stating the obvious to me.
Well, they only
about
have in the whole article. Well, duh.
yeah, I want to say, well done. I know it's really well written, and I have to also remember that, you know, the four of us and many of the 66 others on the call, we know this, and so we think about it that way. And so it may seem, you know, like duh, again, stating the obvious. But
We are.
I'm glad that it has been stated, and that people who may not think about it are reading that.
Can I just tell you, Richard, we are preaching to the choir, because it occurred to me last night. I did a webinar for a company in the Middle East, and we were talking about culture, and we were talking about customer experience and how it relates to culture.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't get it. And that's so,
Really?
I think that the people that are on this call are so advanced, you know, compared to who should be getting this message. So, you know.
Nice sucking up to the audience.
Yeah, nice. Well, listen, since
but wait, before I want to jump on something Jeff said.
but wait, there's more.
Well, this notion that people get it, right? I always think, okay, yeah, most people get it, but again, we know there's this knowing doing gap that exists in the world. I think most companies, most leaders know this, but are they really getting it? I just referenced in a webinar last week on customer service a Harvard study that found that 80% of companies think they are delivering phenomenal customer service.
Yeah.
However, when they surveyed the customers of those companies, only 8% agreed.
Yeah.
A little bit of a disconnect.
But a zero doesn't mean anything, right? In math, zero is nothing.
Yeah. Well, and then the issue is whose impression counts. You know, which one really matters, and obviously, it's the customer. So it's because in November we're going to be going to the polls in this country. I think it's time to do a poll. So let's do a poll here, and I have a question for the audience. Here, let me read the question first, and then I'll launch the poll. I'm going to give you a list of 10 companies. You're going to know most of these companies. They are all consumer-facing companies. You'll know most of them. There are a few that you may not know because they're a little bit regional in nature, but you'll know most of them. And the question says, which of these companies, in your humble opinion, has a good culture? And if you don't select it, it means you either think they have a bad culture, or you just aren't familiar enough with the company to go one way or the other. So this is a black and white question. It's, you know, just there's not a lot of nuance to it. You can only pick, there's only one thing to check. So when you see the company, put a check by it, and you can do as many as you want if you think they have overall a good culture. If you don't, leave it blank. And if you don't know, leave it blank, okay? So I'm going to allow the panelists to vote. I'm going to launch the poll, and go for it, please. We're getting a few. Here we go.
Oh, all my clients.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, was I sucking up again, Mike?
Yeah, yeah, a little bit. Yeah, okay. All right, so we're all right.
You mean Jeff, you're responsible for some of those lousy cultures that we just saw?
You can have United.
Okay, we got about 43 people, 47 people weighing in. We'll let it go a little longer.
You know, while we're waiting, I just want to mention that Lori mentioned, and I know everybody can read it, but it's so true that it's so hard to control our employees sometimes who have terrible attitudes. But that's a whole other show we need to talk about. It's really, you know, how do we deal with those employees who pretend they're happy when facing customers, and the customer knows darn well that they're not. So
yeah.
Whenever I encounter horrible customers, I don't know about you, gents, but when I encounter bad customer service, my immediate thought always goes to not just focusing on the employee who's just demonstrated a horrible attitude. But my immediate thought always goes to, this company has either lousy hiring practices or lousy training practices.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to end the poll. 56 of 69 have weighed in. I'm going to end the poll, and I'm going to share the results. But it's interesting. Now, if I share the results, are they going to go away from the screen? I don't know. Do you guys see any? You don't see anything.
I don't see anything.
Okay, I'm going to share the results, but before I do, let me take a look at this. We're seeing that Amazon is up there pretty high. Zappos, interestingly enough, gets the highest. But Zappos, Southwest.
I think the Wegmans should be the highest, but people probably don't know it.
Right, Wegmans probably would be if everybody was familiar with that. So I'm going to share the results. Okay, hopefully everybody can see that now, and it did not pop it off my screen. So yeah, so what's my point in even asking these questions? I think it's that organizations do have a reputation, and people have a view about whether they have a good culture or a bad culture. So we see Amazon pretty high, and this is whether this is true or not. I live in Jacksonville, Florida. We have four Amazon facilities here in Jacksonville. And if we were to limit this to people who in Jacksonville, that would be a lot lower score, just based on the perception that we hear from our neighbors who work there. And yet Zappos, which is owned by Amazon, universally gets high scores, and our audience knows it. Look, Southwest Airlines has a really high score because they have a reputation that way, and our audience knows it. Look at United Airlines if you can see it. Put on your reading glasses if you need to see that. Yeah.
How about Comcast?
Does Comcast? Yeah, Comcast does register. 3 people said that it has a good culture. So now those 3 people are absolutely, in their view, if that's what it is, that's not an invalid view at all.
Can I jump
My
in?
point here is that there are more people who say Zappos has a good culture than who say Comcast does. Jeff, what were you going to say?
I just want to point out, though, your question, which is very clearly says they have a good culture, I would venture to guess that 90% of the people who said Zappos don't know that much about Zappos culture. They know what kind of customer experience they have.
Right.
They know about the customer culture.
Yeah.
And so we assume that if the customer culture is good, then they must have a great internal culture. And you didn't ask, is it great, which one is the best customer service?
That's right. I on purpose.
It's classic halo effect, right? So we just assume that because, and sometimes it's even just product-based, going, I bought these shoes, I love these shoes, therefore they must be amazing. And we do that. We look at a sports celebrity, we go, oh, they play basketball well, so they must be a humanitarian as well. Sometimes it's justified, other times we get it dead wrong.
Yeah. So I want to ask another poll question, and this one's a little bit different, obviously, or it would be the same question. But let's put this up here, and let me read the question first, and then I'll put it on the screen for everyone. It says, and it really kind of gets to what Jeff was just talking about. We didn't ask about their customer service or their customer experience. We asked about their culture. But here's the second question for everyone. Have you ever intentionally chosen to do business with one company over another, specifically because of your perception of their culture, and not because of the customer experience you've had or expect to have? I'm going to launch the poll. You'll see that wordy question that's up there. You get yes, no, or not sure. Those are your choices. All right, here goes the poll. Take a minute, think about that, and give us your answers. Have you ever intentionally chosen to do business with one company over another, specifically because of your perception of their culture, not because of the customer experience you've had or expect to have?
This is an interesting question to me, and I talk about it a lot. And I'm always curious if this, as the years go by, if this is going to become more and more of an issue as people start to make more and more of their decisions from a values-based approach, right? Yeah. And if they have a business in their community, in their town, where they know the employees are treated horribly and it has a reputation as an awful workplace, even if the customer service is really good, even if they have the cheapest products or service, will people contribute to them?
I mentioned to you guys, I have a roofer working outside my window right now. You may hear the noise. I chose them over the other roofer that I was looking at because of some of the environmental things they've done, and the ratings that I saw online, and how they treat their employees.
Actually,
and you know, they're not contractors, they're employees. They
Yeah.
pay them well. So yeah, I'm saying, yeah, I'm curious to see what the audience says.
and in terms of
well, that-
reputation,
yeah.
because we live in such a digital world, I mean, I'm sure everyone's done this. Everyone's jumped onto Amazon, bought a product, and just looked at the ratings. And it all depends on what your value system is. And if you like people that
Yeah.
are more environmentally friendly, you're going to deal with the companies that are more environmentally friendly. If you
Sure.
like price, you're going to go with the cheapest price. If culture is important to you, and humanitarian kind of things, then yeah, you're going to generally deal with those people. That's what we do as human beings. We have our magical list of what's important to us, and we act accordingly to it.
Yeah. I remember when Bill Catlin and I wrote Contented Cows Give Better Milk, one of the things we talked about was, well, I'll just throw it out there, AT&T. I worked for AT&T 100 years ago, and it was not, for me, it was not a good experience, and the culture was not positive. When we wrote the book 20 years ago, that was still probably pretty much the reputation. And yet someone whom we interviewed outside of AT&T said, you know, it's a really good point. However, and you know, perhaps they don't pay their employees well enough, but are most consumers willing to say, you know, I'd be willing to pay more for my telephone. This is at the time it was landline. I'd be willing to pay more for my telephone service if you would pay your employees better. Probably 20 years ago, most people would have said, no, not so much. And I don't know, that may still be the same, but I suspect it may be a little different today. I don't know. So here's what our poll said. 67%, 63% said, yeah, they've made decisions based on their perception of an organization's culture. 14% said no, and 23%, no, not sure. But it's yeah, I thought it was an interesting question. That's why I asked it.
Yeah, you know, Laurie mentions Hobby Lobby's culture of being family friendly to her employees, close early, closed on Sunday, means a lot to me. You know, it's the same thing with Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Many people do business with them because of their culture, because they're closed on Sundays. They are Christian based. They are, you know, so I think that's I think it's not unusual.
Yeah, I think people make choices based on that a lot.
And we see it both ways too, right? Because you look at the whole Ellen fiasco, right?
Yeah.
And so everyone loved Ellen, and then all of a sudden we're hearing, and whether or not it's true, it's irrelevant, but we're hearing, oh, she's a monster and she treats her people like this, and the organizational culture sucks. Then people are coming out of the woodwork going, well, I'm not going to watch it, and oh, she should apologize to her, and this, that, and the other. And so there's an example of the oozing we were talking about, and it starts internally, and it penetrates, and it goes external.
Yeah. By the way, our good friend Jerry Gitchell, who's with us today.
Hey, Jerry.
Jerry has a question for us. He says, have we as in the panelists, experienced a change in the value customers put on organizations' social responsibility? And so I think that's what we were talking about, is absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Clear as a bell to me.
And I will tell you also that I think generational wise, Sunjay maybe even be excluded from this. I think that, you know, Gen Y and the next generation are going to put a lot more emphasis on that as well.
Oh, absolutely, Jeff. There are so many surveys that are showing that the younger the generation, the way more likely they are to make their decisions based on certain values.
They're much more idealistic, right? And I mean, I remember reading something years ago that said, yeah, the boomer or the veterans, they went to work for 50 years and they got their watch and they said, thank you, sir, thank you, ma'am, and they were done. And then the boomers went to work, and after 30 years, they got their retirement watch and they kind of grunted their teeth and said, oh, it sucked, but it's done. The Xers were kind of a little more vocal, saying, yeah, I don't really like it. They switched jobs a few times, and you know, they retired after 10 years. The Gen Ys would be like, yeah, that I don't believe in mopping floors. It's prejudice against my views and my beliefs, and then they go back and they live in their parents' basement. So you have that whole circle going on because they've been entitled and they have the opportunity to not do it. So it gives them more runway to be more idealistic.
Don't knock basements, okay? I mean, that's where I am. Ironically, I'm the only Floridian on the call, and I'm the only one in a basement. Yes, I have the only basement in the state of Florida. Somebody was going to say something, and I have another article I want to share.
I want to acknowledge Nicole's comment because I think it's important. You know, Nicole said that with Chick-fil-A and Hobby Lobby, their culture is the reason that she avoids them. And so, you know, there's a dilemma that I think most organizations have. They've got to kind of decide, this is our culture, you know, and no offense to Nicole or anybody else, but, you know, love it or leave it.
Yeah.
And that's what they're saying.
I don't think that's a dilemma. That's not a dilemma at all. That's smart business, because you can't be everything to everyone. So if you can articulate your brand promise, yeah, people are going to say you're the devil and run away, and other people are going to think you're the best thing since sliced bread. And that is part of being decisive and picking a path and running down that path.
Yeah. And I really respect companies that know who they are and say who they are, even if it's a company I don't like. If, you know, maybe because I don't relate to their values. But if they know who they are, say who they are, and they are authentic to that, I respect that. Rather than some, you know, who kind of try to do everything at one time.
Yeah.
So I have another example, and that comes from, if we're talking about customer experience, culture, and so forth, and that has to do with the whole airline thing, especially during COVID. A lot of people have not been on airplanes. I have had the
Are you going to vent?
well, no. I've had the opportunity to be on airplanes more than I thought I would be the last 5 months, especially the last couple of weeks. But there was an article that came out. I wanted to share this a few calls ago, but it's even more relevant today. It actually came out about 6 weeks ago in Inc. magazine. Now, many of you probably know that of the 4 kind of major airlines in the U.S., Delta and Southwest have agreed to block middle seats. And so they're trying to maintain social distance to the degree that it's possible on an enclosed aluminum capsule, okay? American and United, on the other hand, have said, no, we're clearly not going to do that. So this interesting article in Inc. magazine, it was by Jason Otten he's a tech columnist. I'm going to actually read a few words of it because I think it's really well worded and causes us to really think. He says, United Airlines has all but admitted that blocking the middle seat on flights is mostly theater, designed to make people feel safer without any actual benefit. In an interview on CNN, Josh Earnest, who is United's chief communications officer, said that keeping the seat next to you open is not going to make a material difference. Last week, American Airlines announced it would start booking flights to full capacity effective July 1st, leaving only Delta and Southwest among the largest domestic carriers to block middle seats. Now, this is a long article and it goes on saying a lot of really good things, but he kind of finishes it by saying, this is the first time an airline, to my knowledge, has simply said social distancing isn't a thing on an airplane, so it really doesn't matter how many people we pack on the plane. Then he says, if that's the case, air travel is in far more serious trouble than we already know. And then he closes by saying, here's the thing, and I think it's an important point. Sometimes theater matters. And it just makes me wonder, you know, is culture, and to me, theater is not fake. You know, it's not a facade. But what's the connection between culture and theater, as he's saying? Does the appearance matter? I have an opinion on that because I've been on planes in the last few weeks. What do you guys think? What do our audience members think?
I'm a marketing guy, and I think that marketing is theater, period.
Yeah.
And so if it's working for those 2 airlines that are leaving the seats and filling up their other seats when they might not have before, good for them. Now, as a consumer, I like the idea of having that middle seat open. There's something about it that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Whether it's real or not, I don't really care. That's my feeling.
Perception is reality. We know this. I was speaking because in our world, when we're going through something, nothing else really matters. And it just kind of goes back to that earlier point. There are people who are going to choose to do business with Delta and Southwest because of this, and people who are going to choose to avoid them because of this. Yeah, and both are right. They're picking their lane. I was speaking to a very fancy private school. This is, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. First day, I was speaking to the 7th grade class, and the valedictorian of the 7th grade class gets up and he has his little valedictorian speech and he says, well, it's time, after a summer full of touring Viking caves in Europe and riding roller coasters in South America, it's time to get back to the grind of grade 7. And I was laughing, kind of going, this grind of grade 7. But yeah, for him, it is a grind because that's what's real for him in that moment. That is his perception, and his perception is reality. So if people, like you're going to your point, Jeff, from a marketing standpoint, if that's the leverage, even if it makes 0.1% difference, and that's what they choose to focus on, and that's important to people, fantastic.
Yeah, and
Well,
to me, it's like so many things in this kind of COVID environment that we're in. It's not a value judgment. It's not a moral judgment to me, because the ironic thing is, okay, so some people might say, well, United and American are making a stupid business decision because nobody's going to want to fly on their planes if they're not blocking the middle seats. It's a little bit like the old, it was Yogi Berra who said about this crowded restaurant, nobody goes there anymore. It's too crowded. If they're filling up the seats, then I think, as you said, Jeff, well, good for them. I'm not going to be on one of their seats. I'm going to be on Delta or Southwest, and if they can't fill up the seats, I hope they can continue to stay in business and start to make a profit at some point.
So there's an economical decision here too. Right? There's market forces go here. If they're filling up every seat, they can afford to try to charge less. On the flip side, you have to pay the premium to have the empty seat open, right? Because eventually either they're going to have to make money or they go out of business. I mean, that's just the law of business.
Sure, yeah, exactly.
So
yeah.
I wanted to jump in before. I don't want to go
but
down.
I jumped all over you.
I actually wanted to go back when Sunjay's comment about the younger generation not mopping floors. I just wanted to defend the younger generation, that I think a lot of them are making values-based decisions because they are far more aware of what's going on in the world than previous younger generations. I think that's a totally different issue, not mopping floor. But anyways, I just wanted to get that off my chest.
Hold on, I want to fight back at you on this. I agree with that 100%, but it's only because they're in a position that they can do it. You see, if you go back 50 years, that kid mopping the floor didn't have a choice to say no because their parents were relying on that income to put food on the table. And so in a sense, we've kind of created this entitled generation because we can say, oh, if it doesn't sit with you and you're going to get a blister, then just tell them no and come and live in my basement.
But those are
the pendulum from one extreme to the other, and the reality is there's something happy in the middle.
Those are two different issues. All I would argue. I think they're completely different issues. And to this question of theater, I guess my mind immediately goes to this simple thought: is that there's doing the right thing and there's being seen as doing the right thing. And if you're just worried about being seen as doing the right thing, but not actually doing the right thing, then that's a huge problem. And that's an issue we should talk about and address. I think you need to do the right thing, and then you also need to be seen doing the right thing.
So in light of that, Mike, really good point. What do you think about this? Delta announced this week, what is today? Wednesday, every other Wednesday. Delta announced this week that they are extending their blocking the middle seats through January 6th. I don't know where they got that date. January 6th of 2021. That's a pretty strong commitment on that. I don't know if that means they're doing the right thing or they want to be seen as doing the right thing.
Right away, I think, we're not booking all our seats anyway. So if we do this, there is a marketing mind, a pessimistic mind behind it too. But hey, if it works, it works.
Although I will tell you, and I've been on a number of Delta flights the last few weeks, they were as full as they could have been.
Really?
Every available seat, every bookable seat pretty much was booked.
By the way, I got to ask, is Air Canada doing this? Maybe somebody can type it in if you two don't know. So.
I think they stopped doing it. I think WestJet and Air Canada, and somebody correct me in the chat box if I'm wrong, I think they announced in late June they were stopping.
Just curious.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. What does that whole issue that I brought up have to do with culture?
Yeah,
whether we're blocking seats or not, willing to give up revenue in the short term for something that may look like a value, how does it affect, what does it have to do with culture?
Well, let's go back to what you were saying about theater. If it's theater, it has nothing to do with culture. But if it's like Mike said, if they truly believe that that's going to help, do something, some percentage, small percentage of protecting our passengers from getting COVID, then it's absolutely about culture. So there is a difference there.
Yeah. Well, I think either way, Jeff, though, it's about culture. You make a decision, it reflects your culture.
All decisions, right, are about culture.
Yeah. Every decision reflects your culture, reflects your values, reflects whether you are standing behind your values, whether actions really do speak louder than words.
Yeah. Well, I just think I know I'm talking a lot today, but back to customer experience for a minute. Customer experience, the difference between customer service and customer experience is it's the end-to-end experience. So it's not just about whether or not that seat is unblocked. It's also about the ticket agent who just gave me a hard time. It's about when I called through, I couldn't get a live person. So I think it's very closely tied to the culture is so closely tied to the experience, not just customer service.
Absolutely.
And we got an answer that says, oh, Air Canada and WestJet are filling all their seats.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think since the end of June. So I don't know, Richard, are we going to talk about what do we do in the remaining minutes? We have very few minutes.
Let's do that. What do we do?
Ramp up our customer experience.
Yeah, who's got some ideas?
Well, I actually wanted to bring this notion forward when this topic came up. Is this idea, we say the customer is always right. And I never like that expression, and I think it's garbage. I think the right customer is always right. And so if you can articulate and you have a clear vision of what that customer is, then you want to service him or her and create an experience that is, over promise and under promise and over delivered. And that's what you do. That's how you create the oozing and the symbiotic relationship going back and forth from customer to employee and employee to customer, creating this positive synergistic cycle.
Yeah, and I mean, I strongly believe, as you do, Sunjay, that the customer is not always right, but the customer is always the customer.
yes.
And you can't do without them. So you got to kind of find a way to make what the customer wants and what you can provide enough the same.
Well, I love how we brought up Southwest Airlines in that poll.
Yeah.
And there are many, many examples of where Southwest Airlines have publicly said,
Oh, yeah.
you will enjoy, sir, flying with many of our competitors, but
Right,
not
but
us.
not
Thank
us.
you very
Yeah.
much. We're firing you as a customer.
Yeah, yeah.
April brings up the point of tolerating abusive customers lowers employee morale.
Absolutely. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Here, in my mind, I think you have to build such a rocking great workplace culture where you are taking such good care of your employees, where you've got your hiring, your training, your onboarding down so well that when there is a bad customer service experience, your first thought is, boy, I wonder what's going on with Susan, my employee, because this is not typical of Susan. And that is where your mind first goes, that there's a problem on the customer's end, maybe not your employees' end, because you've done such a brilliant job with your culture.
Yeah.
And if I can go back to your original question, Richard, it occurred to me partway through this today. You said company culture versus customer culture. And I think that there is no customer culture if there is no company culture. I mean, that's what we've been saying all day, right?
Yeah.
One doesn't exist.
So so they are really interchangeable almost.
Right.
Almost interchangeable, almost synonymous.
Well, I had a problem right from the minute you told us that this was the title, to be honest with you, because I'm not sure what customer culture is. Even if you put it in Google, everything comes up as customer experience, customer service. Right.
That's right. Yeah.
Nobody.
I did that to make us think. We don't do that enough. So
on that point, Jeff keeps using the phrase experience, right? Customer experience. I just on my LinkedIn account, I just wrote this study today, and I thought this is interesting because we know if you want to have rocking great customer service, you have to get your hiring right. And you should be demonstrating phenomenal customer service through that entire hiring experience your candidates are going through. They should be embedded in this phenomenal customer service experience. So
they should say, man, I really do want to work here.
Right. So this Glassdoor study found that organizations that invest in delivering a strong candidate, and the keyword experience, a strong candidate experience, improve their quality of hire by 70%.
Yeah.
So we've got to make sure we're providing customer service right from day one through our hiring process.
Yeah. You're asking what is customer culture? I'll tell you what customer culture is. It's Apple. It's people lining up for 6 hours overnight to get the brand new iPhone. That is customer culture. And very few organizations can get to that level. But again, it feeds in because now if you can get a job working at the Apple store, then there's cachet in there. And so, I mean, again, it all feeds in back and forth. But I agree, it absolutely starts from internally and spreads out. And that internal culture starts from the leadership, and it needs to be brought down and have people buy in at every level. And when you get that, and we've brought this idea up time and time again, it's the unwritten rules. How do people behave when no one is watching?
When nobody's looking, yeah.
And Robert brings up a great point. You know, he went as a Harley Davidson would be another example of customer culture. Harley Davidson, and I'm not saying this to brag, it was a client of mine a few years ago. They've really changed, and they changed with leadership. Their culture changed, and Harley Davidson is not what it used to be, where, you know, owning a Harley Davidson was the symbol of something. I don't ride, so I don't know. And their culture was incredible internal, which made the customer culture externally incredible. Now, I've heard in the last few years that it's no longer like that. So I'm curious to know, Robert, if that's a loaded question, and you know if that would be an example. I'd love you to put that in the chat box.
Well, and that's interesting point to raise both Sunjay's example of Apple and Harley Davidson, because we're also conflating two different factors here, possibly, right? They've got very cool products. They're known for their products, their brands.
Sure.
People are willing to line up for 6 hours because they're going to get a cool product. I'm not sure they're willing to line up for 6 hours because Apple has this phenomenal customer service. In fact, if they have such phenomenal customer service, why the hell am I standing in line for 6 hours?
Yeah, there you go. Hey guys, we've got about 5 minutes left to go. I want to reference one more article, and I'm actually going to put the link to this in the show notes that come out tomorrow. But real quickly, this was from a Harvard Business Review article that really answers the question: 6 ways to build a customer-centric culture. The 6 way, I'm just going to rattle them off. I'll put the link in the email that you get tomorrow. But the 6 ways are: operationalize customer empathy, hire for customer orientation, what Mike was just saying, democratize customer insights. You'll want to read this and see what that's about. Facilitate direct interaction with customers, link employee culture to the company's financial outcomes, and tie compensation to customer experience data. So if you're interested really in 6 kind of bang, bang, bang things that you can do to operationalize what we've been talking about over the last 41 minutes, take a look at that article when I put it in the email for tomorrow.
Richard, we're also going to put in the email the link. Linda had asked us to put in the link to the study that I mentioned as well.
Okay, will you send that to me?
I will get that to you.
Very good. Okay, what else, guys?
Well, let me just sort of wrap things up if I can in the last couple of minutes that we have. If anybody anybody who's on today would like to put in the chat box their experience with our strategy calls, I'd love for you to do that while I just talk about them quickly. You know, if you're new to every other Wednesday, one of the things that we have been offering is a free strategy call. And like somebody said to us, we did not say this, I promise. They said, why wouldn't you do it? So all we can promise is you'll get 2 of us on that call. We can't tell you who you'll get depending on our schedules, but we'll spend free for 45 minutes. We'll talk about your situation, your company, some of the challenges you're facing, and any questions you have. All you got to do is email me directly. It's jeff@jefftobe.com. You can see it on the screen. And just put in the subject line strategy call, and we'd be glad to do that. And if I can, I guess I'm the cat herder. I'm going to change that to lion herder. I think we should be lion.
Okay, good.
Guys.
I wonder if I'm allergic to lions. I know I'm allergic to cats.
Okay, yeah, well, lions, why don't you find out? We may never see you again if you do. So, no, sorry. Anyway.
I see a comment here from someone named Michael Kerr. He said, it's free, but priceless value. That guy must be brilliant.
I was really excited when I saw that, and then I saw it was from Mike. Okay, yeah.
Anyway, let me quickly say that obviously our next time together is September the 9th. That's 2 Wednesdays from now. And the guys don't know this, but we're going to have a surprise guest. It won't be a surprise to them, but it will be to all of you. Just know that it is somebody who is heavily involved in company culture. So
is it Donald Trump?
It is. It could be, you know. Anyway, we had a wonderful guest a few shows ago, as everybody knows.
Yeah.
And we got requests to have another guest, so we're going to have a guest on September the 9th.
Great.
I didn't even ask permission, so these guys are looking at me now like I might bet on my mind. But
we've known that.
Put it on your calendar, September 9th.
Okay. Anything else? Just a quick wrap up here.
No, but we're getting some good, Natasha, who we did a strategy call with, is bragging about us, and Michael didn't even twist her arm, I don't think, or Sunjay. Yeah. I do want to finish with Frederick's comment. He says, you know, it's very difficult to lead culture absolutely from the top. where I find culture falters with our frontline leaders who are either overwhelmed or undercoached. And that's a great way to leave this. I think that, amen.
Okay, all right. Well, so from sunny, stormy, rainy, 102-degree feels like temperature, Jacksonville, Florida, I'm Richard Hadden. Good to see everyone. We'll see you every other Wednesday. Jeff, Mike, Sunjay.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a rockin' day.
Thanks.